How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I have the extraction shooter bug fully taking hold of me. I've been playing Escape from Duckov, I've been playing Arc Raiders, I've been playing Zero Sievert. So yeah, all those games work well on the Steam Deck. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. In today's video, we have a single topic to cover because Valve just released a new update for the Steam Deck that brought along with it a surprise feature. This one hasn't showed up in any betas, and it's one that's been requested by me and everyone else who has a Steam Deck for over 3 years at this point. Someone tried to check me and say that the Steam Deck's 4 years old, but it was announced around this time. It came out much later than it was supposed to. So I think it's just a little bit over 3 years old. Anyway, before we jump into it, it would really help me out if you subscribe and set your notifications to all, but let's get into this because I am so excited. So I was editing some shorts and I checked Twitter, and there's a new tweet from Valve letting us know that a surprise feature just came to the Steam Deck, and what it is the ability to download games with the screen off. So this has been something that people have been requesting since the Steam Deck came out because it's kind of like the last little feature to really bridge the gap between PC and console. Apparently it was extremely difficult to get up and running, and that's what everyone who used Linux more than I did at the time told me, because apparently Linux doesn't really have support for keeping the Wi-Fi active, or at least parts of your computer active, while it's in sleep mode. So like if it's in sleep mode, it's in sleep mode. It can't connect to the internet and check for updates or anything, and that was causing a problem if you wanted to download games overnight. Initially, it wasn't that big of a deal, but over time, bigger games that get updates all the time, like Dying Light 2, for example, or Diablo 4, those games, whether you have them installed to your SD card or your SSD, they take forever to patch. So like if a 3 or 4 gigabyte update drops randomly in the middle of the night and you don't download it, you could get into this situation where, you go to play a video game on your Steam Deck and it's one of those specific games, and then suddenly you have to patch it. The patch downloads in like 5 or 10 minutes because it's not even that big of a patch, and then you just have to leave your Steam Deck screen on for over an hour or more while it patches the game. I do not understand why that happens with certain games. Like with Diablo 4, people said I was gaslighting them and that all I had to do was disable the HD texture pack and that would fix it. Yeah, it reduced the amount of time it took to patch Diablo 4 from about 2 to 3 hours all the way down to like 2 hours. So I don't really understand why that was an issue, but once the Steam Deck OLED came out, it kind of became an even worse issue because everyone's scared of burn-in with OLEDs. I have 2 OLED TVs. I don't have any burn-in yet, thank Christ, but like on the Steam Deck with the screen, you don't want to leave it on overnight while you patch a game and have it take all night, because it can take all night with some of these games, and then have that one static screen right there on your Steam Deck OLED overnight. That would be terrible, because even though it takes a really long time to actually get an image burned into a screen, you don't want to help it along by doing something as simple as patching a game. Like you could do it by playing a game for infinite hours, like if you only played one game that had the HUD in one spot forever on your Steam Deck, but the only thing that could really push it along as far as I'm talking about would be leaving the screen on overnight while it's patching. And it ended up being something that seems like it was pretty tricky to solve because the way they ended up implementing this was pretty interesting. So it's not necessarily the same, at least from how I'm reading into it, as something like the Nintendo Switch 2, your Xbox Series X, or your PlayStation 5, where they can enter a rest mode, where the screen and the console are basically completely off, but they activate the core features that are needed to connect to the internet and download games and patches. And the PS5 and Xbox will periodically check for new updates so that when you turn it on, all the updates are downloaded and you're ready to game. What this is doing is basically dimming your screen to 0 and leaving the Steam Deck on, but it says it's entering an extremely low power mode that allows it to download games at a relatively fast speed, or updates of course. But when the update finishes, the Steam Deck will know, and then the screen will turn off completely and it will go into sleep mode. So the screen will be off while games are downloaded. Once they finish, the thing will go into sleep mode. I tested it out because, wouldn't you know it, Dying Light 2 released a new in-game event, which means it was going to sit there and patch for a while. So while I was editing some videos over at my desk, I downloaded a patch for the game, and once it finished, it went into sleep mode. I didn't actually see it happen because, I was editing a video on my computer, but then when I came back, it was in sleep mode. I turned the screen back on and everything was downloaded and ready to go. Something I've been talking about here on the channel for a long time now is that competition matters. When you have a company like Xbox coming out and revamping Windows, bringing along the Xbox full screen experience, experience, really pushing Play Anywhere, which is their program that allows games to be bought on PC or Xbox Series X and S, and then you get both copies of the game and saves transfer back and forth. All of that has potential to really affect the footprint of Steam, right? Like if Xbox keeps putting out great features and eventually lands on one that Steam doesn't have, then, you know, people might be swayed to go to the store and buy an Xbox ROG Ally or Ally X versus a Steam Deck from Valve's official store. So like it inspires them, it seems like, to actually put in the work for some of these features that were kind of pushed to the side. Maybe they were saving them for the Deck 2, but now that they know it's coming out later, let's add it to the Steam Deck now to get that one little feature people have been asking for over the finish line. Do I wish this happened sooner? Yes. Do I believe it was a really hard issue to solve? Also yes, because not only was Valve saying it was a hard issue to solve, a lot of the people who watch this channel who knew more about Linux than me at the time when the Steam Deck came out and still do are constantly telling me that it is a hard issue to solve. There was an easier way around it that was a little bit, you know, annoying to set up, where you could go into desktop mode and let your games download their patches or download games, and then eventually the screen would turn off. Or while you're in desktop mode, you could set the screen off time to be relatively short, but make sure that the hard drive's going to sleep time was infinite, so your Steam Deck would stay on but the screen would go off. I know a lot of people had issues with that though, where once the screen was off for a certain amount of time, it was really tough to get the Steam Deck to wake back up, even if you push some buttons or messed with the trackpads a little bit. And I was always staying away from that because I don't want to randomly click stuff, because if the Steam Deck's on but the screen is off, I could randomly click things, I can mute my Steam app and then not have any sound going forward. So up until now, I've just been living without it. I think this is super important. I think this is super important though, because anything they can do to bridge the gap even more between console and PC while leaving those two sides of the fence completely intact, that can matter, you know, when it comes to getting people to want a Steam Deck over another handheld. I think something really important that they should focus on is getting the Steam Deck into stores. We know they can do it because over in Japan, you can buy the Steam Deck at gaming stores. They have awesome displays with like giant Steam Decks and tons of cool art. You can buy Steam gift cards. You can buy the Steam Deck itself. They have the OLED and the LCD, and they even have demo kiosks where you can try the thing out. I think that would go a really long way if they could get those kiosks set up in Target or Best Buy over here in the United States, because the Steam Deck is really something that once you hold it, I think is when you really want it. It's kind of similar to VR in that way, where like VR headsets look a little bulky and weird in pictures, but then when you actually put one on and see how well they work, you're like sold immediately. Like you want to go buy an Oculus Quest 3 or whatever other headset you put on. I think that same effect could easily happen with the Steam Deck, where if you had a demo kiosk set up in a store with games like Hollow Knight Silksong, something like Elden Ring, you know, some of these killer apps, like they could have the publisher or developer create some demos for these games to be loaded onto the Steam Deck that could be played in a store. I think that would really end up selling a lot more Steam Decks, because SteamOS is in a great spot now. It's had a ton of work put into it. They've added a ton of features people have been asking for. And now with this one kind of out the door and working, it's automatically turned on, by the way. So if you update your Steam Deck, you won't have to do anything after that to get this feature turned on. I feel like it's well past ready for prime time, where you can put it in a store and not need someone standing next to it in case something goes wrong. Whereas with the ROG Ally and Xbox Ally, I think those things are actually sort of hurt by having their display models in stores, because things like sleep mode don't really work on that thing out of the box. So I can't tell you how many times I've gone into Best Buy and I'm able to find the ROG Ally display by just opening my ears and really paying attention, because since they're on 24/7, the sleep mode doesn't ever kick in. They scream. The fans are so loud in that thing when it starts to get overheated that like you can actually go into a Best Buy and listen for a really loud fan and guide yourself towards the ROG Ally display. Whereas with the Steam Deck, I don't think you'd run into any issues like that. So yeah, I think they should start selling them in American stores, because clearly they want to get this thing out there more. They are committed to it. They're committed to SteamOS. I think it's time to take the leap. And if they are waiting at least 2 more years for the Steam Deck 2, I think there's never been a better time to double down on the Steam Deck that's already out there. And when they release updates like this, it's proof that they see that too. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're doubling down on what's out there instead of saving features for the Steam Deck 2. I think that's super important because the Steam Deck community keeps growing, man. Like I can't tell you how many times the Steam Deck goes on sale and I immediately get a noticeable bump in people who watch this channel who who are actively looking for Steam Deck videos, and then they stick around because unlike other devices out there, the Steam Deck isn't a gimmick. It's not a vanity piece. Once you actually get your hands on it and realize how awesome it is, you tend to keep playing games on it because you can take it anywhere and play pretty much any game you want on it. The list of games that do not work on it is shrinking every day. So yeah, this is super exciting to me. I know it's not the biggest on paper feature in the world, and if you're on other consoles, it's something that you've had since the first time you've turned it on, and in some cases you've had it for multiple generations. But from a Steam Deck fan's perspective, adding features like this that were seemingly impossible for a very long time shows a commitment from Valve to the platform, which is good, but also shows that we're in it for the long haul here. Like, this isn't a one-hit wonder that they're going to abandon at some point and just move on to other hardware like other manufacturers have in the past, including Valve. It shows that they really care about this thing, and if some people in the community really ask enough for specific features, eventually Valve will figure out a way to implement them. I'm excited. I hope you are too. Update your Steam Deck to get this feature. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.